All right. Welcome. It's another episode of Becoming a Scrum Master. I'm Ryan Ripley. Joining me today is Richie Peters. Richie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself, Ryan?
Hey, it's a nice day. We just had crazy storms roll through the Midwest, so we're cleaning up a little bit, but can't complain too much.
Yep, I hear that.
So Richie and I go way back. We've worked together in a few places. He's moved on into like the director of engineering management track, while of course all of you know Todd and I are doing a lot of teaching and training through Agile for Humans. I wanted to talk to Richie because he's gone through this path of becoming a Scrum Master. He's certified. I mean, I think you have the whole, almost the entire Scrum.org rainbow of certifications. So he's done all the classes. He's worked in a lot of interesting places, startups, traditional financial organizations, all sorts of different types of software companies and everything in between. And so I thought it would be interesting to get Richie in here because he's got more recent, I guess, management leader experience. And there's just been a question, like Todd and I have been kicking around this question, and I know a lot of other Scrum practitioners are kicking this around. I thought I'd go straight to someone who lives it. And so, Richie, let's just jump right into it. Why is Scrum so difficult to implement in today's organizations? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Well, from actually your book that you and Todd published, I think the best quote from there, that big key takeaway for me is that organizations try to take the Scrum framework or whatever kind of Agile framework, right, and just shove it into their organization rather than doing the opposite, right? You guys state that you take the organization and should fit it in within, an Agile framework itself. And I think that's one reason. It's not the only reason, but that is definitely a big reason of why I think it's hard to implement, right? That, and amongst I think education is another one, especially in senior leadership. Really teaching them to understand, what does it mean to be agile, right? It's just like a keyword, a trend. What does it truly actually mean? And what are the values, and how do we implement that?
No, I mean, it makes sense. When you're in your director of engineering or engineering manager or team lead, whatever they framed it as, right? You're responsible for one or many software teams. Usually need to have some kind of tech skills. When someone comes to you from that executive level and they say, hey, Richie, we're implementing Scrum, we're implementing Kanban, we're implementing XYZ framework. Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind, right? When you're in the type of positions that you're in?
The first thing is what exactly do they mean, or what have they been taught, and what do they think it is, right? So let's use Scrum.
I figured it would have been like, oh crap.
Yeah, no.
There's like alarm bells going off, but for the reason you're listening, right? What do they mean? Yeah. Did they just read a book? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'd rather hear that than someone coming up and saying, hey, we're going to try this waterfall technique. Yeah. But no, the first questions that come to mind always is, and we'll just use Scrum as an example, because I think, or just my personal experience has been more with Scrum than Kanban, although, I've done both. But in the Scrum world, you get leadership, and a lot of times there's like, we're going to do Scrum because we want to deliver every 2 weeks.
Yep.
They think, that's what they have in their head, that it's right off the bat, you got assumptions there, right? They're assuming that we could only release every 2 weeks. And the other assumption is that, sprints have to be 2 weeks, right? So
let me ask this. Let me pull on that thread for a second. I like that 2-week thing. Do you find that there's this big assumption at the leadership level that just because we implement Scrum, all the things that make delivery difficult today just magically disappear?
I would say disappear, but I think what and once again, I'm not in their heads, but what I think some assumptions that they're making is that, hey, maybe we're not delivering as frequently as we want to be, or we can deliver every 2 weeks and have this consistent release cycle so that we're always delivering. And it kind of forces the team to, push something out every 2 weeks, regardless of its value, right? And what you get in those kind of cases is you get teams that will rush to meet these deadlines with no really clear sprint goal or a part of a sprint goal, right? And that's where it becomes, I don't say difficult, but this is where the education comes in to give them knowledge and understand what it means to deliver iteratively and to build upon that, right? So I think that's yeah, I think that's typically where the mindset is.
Yeah, it just seems like there's this, oh, we believe in magic now. And here, engineering
Yeah.
manager, not only
Yeah.
are you going to implement Scrum, you're going to change the way people work. The developers are going to groan and be upset because they think they're being micromanaged. But oh, by the way, every impediment to delivery that we experience today, you're going to solve all those too. And you got 3 months to get it all done. And here's a minuscule budget, and get your people through a 2-day training class with Todd and Ryan, and let's go. You know,
Yep. Well, I mean, and that's if you're lucky to even get that.
right,
You would most places won't even throw in the training with Todd and Ryan, right? And
right.
uh, even that I think would be a crucial first step and an eye-opening step for a lot of people to actually dig in and to understand really, how to use and apply the Scrum framework.
Something that Todd talks about a lot, and I'm curious to get, people in the trenches. Not that he's not, but I mean, we teach and train much more than we work in companies now. He and I agree with him on this. He likes to say that if you would take your transformation money and spend it on fixing your architecture, and then go down the path of adopting Scrum, organizations would be 10x better off. What do you think?
Hmm, that's interesting. So we're saying rather than focus in a framework or a process, but focus more on the architecture and tech debt. Is that
Yeah,
what
let's get
we're
the tech sorted out. Let's get the monoliths broken out. Let's get the architecture sorted, and then go in and start. Because the premise is, if you have a bad architecture, if you have a bad platform, if you have a lot of impediments, it doesn't matter which framework you use, you're never going to be fast.
correct? Correct. I think so. That's a tricky one because I think it comes to the famous answer of it depends. Yeah, in my experience, I've seen my cases have been more where the technology is actually the easy part. Like the technology, we're fine there. It's the people and process and the
Yeah.
collaboration and getting other business units and stakeholders talking and being able to have the people in the room that can make decisions that remove those impediments for the engineering team, right? And they're able to move forward and deliver.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, it's some places are in a good spot. Some places the collaboration is desperately needed. It's interesting that it to circle back to one of your original answers about what are some of the difficulties, and it's when an executive says, "I want Scrum," do they understand what they're asking for? Right?
Yep.
I mean, I truly believe that if we sat them down and said, "You're fully empowering a team, you're giving a product owner the budget, you're giving developers full control of scope. The Scrum Master has a lot of say in process and practice, and they're going to be coaching you and your peers." And like, if you laid it out like that, they would never go for this.
100%. 100%. It would scare them away. At least most. Let's say most.
Yeah. Now we've worked for a few that have gone
Yeah.
for it.
Yep.
Definitely a good friend of ours, Joel, comes to mind. Like he's always been open to that
Yep.
stuff, but he's that edge case.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, most I think would just go nuts. And so when you're in that position, you're that engineering director, you're trying to keep the team happy by implementing things that aren't micromanaging. You're trying to get proper Scrum put in so that, I mean, the goal is delivery, not proper Scrum, but you're trying to get things installed in such a way that aren't freaking out the executives. Like, what's that tightrope like? Like, how do you balance that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So ultimately, if you want to, win any discussion, right? I tend to use metrics to facilitate those discussions, right? So let's say for instance, an executive comes down and like, oh, I don't know about empowering the team, or I really want this or that. And on paper here, we could show metrics, right? And depending on what framework you're using, different metrics you're following. For myself, I'll stick with the flow metrics because that's what I usually am monitoring, right? So like stuff like cycle time, throughput, but being able to show executives that and being able to also deliver on those forecasts usually get them in a spot where now they don't care, right? Because really they really don't care the how, right? They just want, and we're talking in the senior executives here. We're not talking like, you know, maybe a VP of engineering, but definitely at the C-level suite, they don't care. They really don't. They want, what they care about is delivering customer value with high quality,
Yep.
right? And if you could do that, the framework, regardless. So when I approach those topics with senior leadership, you kind of have to set expectations and paint the picture a little bit. It's like, hey, this is what you really want, right? Okay, I'm an expert in this area. You have to build that relationship and trust. Be like, I have the idea, I have the certifications, I've been through the training. Let me try out something, right? And if we're not delivering, then we could revisit, maybe some other suggestions, that executives throw out there from left field of trying some other crazy process or trying to, be more involved in managing the team on a day-to-day basis. But it's really level setting. And once again, if you're delivering and executing, I think that speaks for itself. And if you could show that, if you could show that with metrics, it's hard to, it's hard to debate when you have actual tangible evidence.
Well, and I of course, I totally agree. Evidence-based management has been one of those frameworks that, regardless of Scrum or Kanban or waterfall, even if you have EBM in place, those conversations are simpler. I know you use an EBM dashboard whenever you're working with teams to communicate clearly with leadership, and again, that delivery focus is what I think is so lacking in our profession right now. And it's great to hear that. And then, of course, working with you, I've known this, that you are delivery focused. You communicate through metrics and evidence. You experiment. You try something. If it doesn't work, great. We learned something. Let's try something else. And just like Edison, maybe after 99 times, eventually we get a light bulb, right?
That's right. That's right. And another key thing is we're transparent about it, right? We
Right.
we give that visibility. We're not trying to hide anything or be some secret project. But yeah, just being open and transparent, setting expectations, and like I said, the metrics speak for themselves.
So it sounds like the difficulty in implementing Scrum or another framework in today's organizations is really the evidence, like the story behind it. A lot of that is really where we get in a lot of trouble, right?
Yes, and that could open up a different
Sure.
can of worms. We probably could talk, a whole nother session about that, about metrics
Maybe
and
we'll do that. So maybe we'll have you back, Richie. We'll talk about how you use EBM to communicate clearly with executives and stakeholders. But I think for this one, why don't we wrap it up with this? If you're working with, let's say someone just got promoted to engineering manager, and they're
Mhm.
working with their first team, and they just got told you are going to implement Scrum. What's your hot tip? What's your best piece of advice for this person who just got thrown into the deep end of the agile pool?
I would suggest if they already don't have training in the agile space, is to get training or start reading, books, blogs. But a place like Scrum.org is a perfect place to start and read the Scrum handbook. If they're told to use Scrum, right? And even Kanban. There's a lot of good information at scrum.org about Kanban as well, and using Scrum with Kanban actually. But I would say that if they don't have any of that experience of what does it mean to be agile or implement a Scrum framework, I
Yeah.
would start there. I would definitely start there. Um, and if they do have that, right now it becomes educating. And typically it's not educating your team. The engineers, you know, they've been through, well, at least I can't say all of them, but most have been through some sort of agile process, and every company does it different. But I think the other point of advice there is really getting aligned with product and getting product and engineering aligned on the common, the business objectives from the company, and being able to execute that and collaborate on that and deliver. So
Awesome.
so 100%, like I said, the training, and then after that is really working with product and different and then maybe not just product, but product will be your main, you know,
Yeah.
department or other side of the business you'll work with, but definitely being able to collaborate with other business stakeholders and like I said, align on those company objectives.
I think that's a great place to start, right? Get educated. If you're not, scrum.org is a great place. Check out this YouTube channel, bunch of free stuff, plenty of great books out there. Um, if you have any questions about great books, there's videos in this YouTube channel that talks about some of the better ones. But then I love that idea, Richie, that we're going to go talk to product, we're going to talk to leadership, we're going to get that alignment so that everyone understands what they're getting, everyone understands what we're doing. Here's how we're going to measure it. Here's how we're going to implement EBM to make sure it's effective. Get all that stuff in place because look, these conversations, as you know, Richie, we've seen it firsthand get super emotional and people get very defensive and protective. And if you just have the evidence to lay out and say, look, this worked, and you know, our cycle time is improving and our item aging is dropping. And by the way, our customers are now, you know, 15% happier than they were over the last quarter. Maybe we should double down on this. It takes a lot of the sting out of that conversation, right?
100%. Yep.
Cool.
It's like I said, it's very hard to debate that.
It does. It definitely gets us back on some good footing. So, Richie, I appreciate you doing this. We'll definitely get you back next time. I would love to hear some of your war stories with EBM as you're working with leaders and teams. How can people reach out to you? Like, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure.
And you know, what's next for you?
Yeah. You know, I'm open and available to new opportunities currently. And you know, if people just want to network and connect, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm sure we could provide a nice fancy link or URL in the
Check
video
the show
or
notes.
the show notes. And my email, I see my email's right there. People could email me and reach out, and you know, like I said, happy to talk. You know, whether it be about new opportunities or just networking, and you know, building those relationships within the engineering space.
Awesome. Thanks, Richie. Really appreciate you doing this, and can't
Thank
wait for
you, Ryan.
can't wait for our next one, bud.
All right, take care. Appreciate it.